I'm coming to a friend to speak about could be my problems or my life in general, and I expect them to mirror my reality in a way where I can reflect correctly. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And I say this very often as, it's like a mirror, but not one that mimics you, but one that reflects you.
Hello, I'm Sharad Bansori, and welcome to this discussion where we try to examine ourselves, our thoughts, and our lives by trying to ask the right questions and face the only thing that we can be sure of: uncertainty. Today, I have with me Devarsh Thaker, a content specialist with a focus on influencing pop culture. And together, we delve into a conversation about friendship and marriage. This is The Method. How would you introduce yourself?
My name is Devarsh. I usually start off with that. I'm a content strategist by profession. Um, I'm a sport and fitness enthusiast. Might not look it right now, but that's inherent in my nature. I love conversations, especially with people who I don't know, and that's something that you brought up, because it tells me things about myself that I didn't know. It teaches me how I would react to something that I don't see as um, that I'm already used to as an interaction, or
Right.
as a, it's stimuli for me to react, and I learn about myself.
Right. Right.
So that's me as a person, more
Okay.
or less.
So I've probably asked this question to 10 or so people, and they usually either give a professional answer
Yeah.
or they give a very personal answer
Yeah.
and very limited personal answer, that this is my name and I'm someone who does this. So I usually end up asking them, is this the best, easier descriptor of you, or is it a true depiction of who you are? But in your case, it seems to me that you've sort of given me both.
In a
Right.
way.
So I'll skip this part of it. It seems to me that I can skip this part rather. Now, the theme of the first season is uncertainty, because I feel like that's the best place I can start, and also that's a remark of where I am in my life as well.
Right.
In fact, it's my understanding that if someone really, the way you said, right, if I face a variable which I'm not used to, or an unknown variable, I learn something about myself. But for that, you have a precondition that there are things that you don't know.
Correct.
So that's a place I feel that most people, it by nature, it's in our nature to not know. And so that's why uncertainty is the theme. That's the best place to start.
Absolutely.
Having said that, there are two ways to go about it right now. I'm just trying to figure out which one would be the best. I'll just tell you this quotation, which is attributed to Socrates. It's the beginning of wisdom is the definition of terms, right? We need to have an agreed upon definition. Even if our definitions might not be traditional, at least I should know what your definition is and you should know what my definition is. In articulating the definition to each other through a conversation, then we'll have an agreed upon definition. That's how I see it.
Right.
Now, apart from, let's say, the vibe, I've met you quite recently. It's been, what, 2.5 months, something.
Probably,
We met
yeah.
probably 5 times.
Yeah.
But there was a vibe.
Right.
And that vibe led me to ask you that there is definitely an intersection between the two of us. What is it? That's what I asked you. And you said, and I'm paraphrasing at this point, but
Yeah.
you said that asking difficult questions. So with respect to the beginning of wisdom is a term of definition, I would want you to elaborate what you meant by asking difficult questions.
I've always believed, and I live by that unless you're not moving forward, you're not doing much, right?
Okay.
And when I say moving forward, I put it across as a way to solve problems, a way to do something out of the ordinary. Because as humanity, you look at us today, or you look at the way our parents or our forefathers have been, right? They've been solving problems generation over generation, which has led us to where we are today. Simply the fact that, something, because I'm going to talk about what we're doing a podcast, and something like this didn't exist 10 years ago, maybe 15, 20 years ago, right? And why is that? It's that because somebody asked a question saying that why doesn't this exist, right?
Right.
And it's about questioning things that don't exist,
Right.
And then understanding why they don't exist and sort of trying to solve that.
Okay.
Right. So whether it's you know a conversation about the Socrates method that you spoke about. Socrates came and did his thing, and then now people are trying to decipher what it means, how to implement that in their lives,
Right.
how to sort of metamorphose that into content, into various forms.
Right.
Right. But these things come about when you start asking questions and answering them as well, not just with yourself or by yourself, but like you said, by alignment and understanding the definition of terms,
Right.
and agreeing or disagreeing upon them,
Right.
right? And I think for me, looking for those questions that are not out there and then finding those answers helps me and the people around me grow and move forward.
Right.
Which is why I feel it is imperative to ask and answer difficult questions.
Right. But not necessarily difficult question, because we may not know that it's a difficult question or not.
Until you
But-
don't start answering
Right.
it, right?
But
So,
being in
yeah,
the mode of having a conversation, that
Correct.
holds precedent. Like,
Absolutely.
you rather have a conversation than, avoid it.
correct.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's something.
Confrontation is key. I feel like whether it's a problem or even if it's not, even if it's something about coffee, for
Right.
example, something as mundane as that. Confronting things is far more important than, like you said, not having the conversation about it.
Right.
Which then leads to questions, which then leads to debate, which
Right.
sometimes leads you to solutions,
Right.
and then maybe backtracking and figuring, wow, this is a difficult question or a difficult problem to solve, and maybe I'm trying
Okay.
to make that happen.
On a regular basis, when you look at your interaction with the number of people, the people that you interact with, how often do you often do you see the opportunity, or how often does the opportunity present itself to you where you get to be in that space of asking difficult questions or in the domain of questions?
So I like to, and as much as it's not black and white, but split my life as a professional and as personal life.
Right.
In the professional domain, I think I do that more often than I do in the personal space. Not that I like that equation or that
Okay.
ratio. I would love to change that.
Right.
But people are complicated, and emotions are something that sort of come in when you try to answer difficult questions
Of course.
in your personal life. So I just feel like professionally people don't take offense as much as
Right.
personally people would, and I feel on a day-to-day basis, like you asked me, I think at least with the people that I interact professionally almost every day, personally maybe
Not as much.
not as much as I'd like. I'd love to
Right.
change that.
Right.
And I think it's a constant
Right.
effort to do that.
I'm going to hold this part here.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that hold that thought, but please continue. That's how I see it, right? I'm going to come back to it, but before that, we spoke about asking questions, but that's a part of having conversations, essentially.
Correct.
Now, I believe that having conversations is actually a cornerstone of what it means to be a friend. And what I mean to say with that is not that let's be pally or let's be buddy, but what it means to be a friend. And for me, it's actually a duty. One of the duties is having a conversation, because probably you have a really ridiculous idea.
Yeah.
It's my job
Yeah.
as a tiny low resolution thumbnail view of the society to tell you that that's not probably going to work out for you.
Yep.
Probably.
Yep.
Only statistically. For example, if you were to tell me that you're going to start a business, I'd be inclined to tell you, oh, that's a great idea. But if you told me that you wanted to, rob a bank, I'd be like, probably not a great idea. And again, it'll be a probably, because there's a 2% chance that it's a great idea.
Right.
Right?
And you can make a Netflix show about it.
Right. Yeah. So, and I say that as a sort of like a precursor to what I'm about to tell you right now, is that you said something to me, and now I feel like it's my duty to respond to what you've said.
Correct.
So it's not more of a reply to it,
Or a reaction.
or
Yeah.
it's not even a questioning of sorts, as much as, okay, you said that, and now it's my duty to tell you exactly how I feel,
Right.
as unfiltered as I can. So you said that professionally you get to do that and personally don't get to do that, in a sense. And now my response to that is it seems very obvious to me that why it happens like that in a professional domain. Probably it's clear to you as well.
Yeah.
Because the metrics are quite clear. No one can really get emotional about it because, hey, you have to deliver this by this
Yep,
time.
yeah. And
they're like, okay,
diplomacy is rife.
right. And it's
in
like
profession.
the borders are quite clear.
Yeah,
This is your job.
And you don't feel bad about someone giving you feedback.
Because they're usually your manager or boss
Correct,
or leader
correct,
or something like that.
correct.
And they're like, okay, he's telling me. There are obviously elements, there's some small percentage where emotions have to take precedent. We
Absolutely.
understand that.
Yeah.
But professionally, it's very clear. Personally, I feel like it's not very clear because, it's my understanding that people don't even know what it means to be a friend.
Yeah.
Because, I've had conversations with a group of social acquaintances, let's call it that. And I would put forth my opinion about something, and the response would be something like, it's his life, let it be. And it doesn't sit well with me because of the aforementioned duties. I'm not saying I'm right, but I can't not tell a person what they feel.
Yeah.
So when it comes to personal thing, how do you think my first question is, do you agree with what I said?
Absolutely, 100%. Because I like to believe I'm a no bullshit kind of guy,
Right.
but I have to pretend to be diplomatic every now and then, which is, taking from what you said, that sometimes you're in a position where, like, your life, you figure it out. As much as I wouldn't like doing that sometimes, and then going back to the fact that sometimes emotions are at play, you don't want to strike a chord, you don't want to pull a string sometimes, and so you're like, okay, you know what, you do you. But
Right.
but I don't like being that person
You don't like being a person who holds back.
who's diplomatic just
Okay.
for the sake of
So
being.
could you just elaborate what you mean by diplomatic? Because a lot, my mom says that you have to be diplomatic to
Yeah,
me,
yeah.
and I think what she says, but the reverse of what she feels is that I'm rude. That's what she feels.
Yeah, correct.
But just to add to that, she's definitely one of the people who would say that don't say something because it might
Hurt someone. Yeah.
and it's so vague because everything could hurt everyone.
Absolutely.
The fact that maybe she's telling me to be diplomatic could hurt me.
Yeah.
So isn't it sort of contradicting to her own thing, right? So my question is then, what is diplomatic? What is your definition of diplomatic?
It's trying not to be rude. It's trying to put a point across without being sentimental about it, or inching at someone's sentiments. It's diplomacy for me is trying to do the right thing without pointing out the wrong. Like trying to point out the right direction without saying, hey, don't go there or do that.
How would you define
It's
the right thing?
it's the best word to describe diplomacy is the word maybe, right? A lot of times we have a conversation. Maybe the sound might not be great on this podcast, but that is me insinuating that it sucks. But I'm trying to be nice about the fact that, hey, it might be, maybe you can
But
check
you're
it out.
allowing the possibility for me to give an
Of course.
explanation.
Otherwise, I mean, then look, diplomacy still involves you trying to do the right thing
Right.
while staying safe.
Right. Which is clearing your uncertainty about it, sort of.
Yeah,
Right,
for
okay.
sure.
That's one.
Like you're putting out the fact that you're uncertain about a possibility,
Right.
and trying to urge the other person to explore that uncertainty,
Right.
right? And I think maybe is a great way to be
Right.
diplomatic. Try doing that. Try correcting someone and try saying, maybe that coffee sucks. I'm not sure, but maybe and I believe like that. For me, is diplomacy, because if a lot of my colleagues have told me in the past, outside of a professional setting, that I may be rude sometimes, right?
Oh, right.
Okay.
I mean,
but
right.
but I said, are you saying I am utterly honest, or are you saying that I am rude? think about it,
Right.
right? Because like going back to the fact that we spoke about professionalism and personal relationships and how we sort of look at diplomacy in that. In a professional setting, everyone is aligned on a somewhat similar goal, right? And we have different parts to play. Now, if it is my part to tell somebody else how to do their part or correct their part, I have to be honest with them.
Of course.
Right?
That's
And
your
it's my job.
It's your
It
job,
is my
yeah.
job. And sometimes that might come across as me being rude
right.
in the eyes of the other person.
Right.
But if I was diplomatic about it, if I allowed for a certain level of uncertainty, then I'm actually not doing my job, because I am not being true to what I'm supposed to be doing
Right.
as an end goal for collectively, right?
Right.
But in a personal setting, that might not always, that dynamic doesn't always play out,
Right.
because there is no one goal
Right.
that people in a person, even friends for that matter,
Right.
are vying towards, right? Friendship is of course it grows over time, but
Right.
it's platonic. It's something that always remains,
Right.
right? But as a business or as a job or as a professional setting, you're always aiming to grow, right?
Okay.
While you're also aiming to grow a relationship as a friend,
Right.
you make it, you go deeper, but you're always going to be friends.
Okay.
Of course, yeah.
No,
I
no,
mean,
you
there
know
are
what I'm
exceptions.
talking
Yeah,
about. Yeah,
there are exceptions to that
Right.
rule for sure. But
No, I understand where it comes from. Well, or rather, it's an outcome of an expectation. In a business, you expect to grow,
exactly,
right?
Yeah,
In a
yeah,
friendship, you think there is no more growth as much as now you have to sustain it for a period of time.
exactly.
Sort of.
Yeah.
But I sort of don't agree on that, because I
Sure,
feel
sure.
like, let me just, well, I'll give you the question as well.
Yeah.
Actually, let me start with you, because it has to be directed. What does it, and it's one of the questions we've listed actually.
Yeah.
So, what does it mean to be a friend?
It's about being non-judgmental about unfiltered thoughts and conversations, and being I think it's a two-way thing, right? One is about being a friend to someone, and then that friend being a friend back to you, and it's sort of, it's a give and take, and the give is, like I said, being unjudgmental, non-judgmental, and being true.
Okay.
Right? If I can be my truest self with somebody, I consider that person a friend,
Right.
and I would hope that they accept me as my truest self,
Right.
where I can just say whatever comes to my mind, and hope that the other person doesn't judge me, yet is true to it,
Right.
right? Or true to what or is truthful to what I'm saying in their response,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah, that's being a friend, because everything else revolves around it. It could be something as random as, hey, I just want to go and paraglide this weekend. They're like, are you crazy? You have a back problem, like
Right.
stop doing that. Or if, because they care about me, they're
Right.
truthful about it. Or if if it was somebody else, they would be like, yeah, sure, man, go, let's paraglide. I don't
Right.
know, I don't care about your back.
Right.
But a good friend or a
Right.
true friend would be like, listen, you know what, you probably should consider this, even though I'm vetting your enthusiasm, it's
right.
it's good
Right.
for you,
Right. In
And-
the effort of making sure that you get to live longer.
for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, sort of, two things about it. One, friendship is definitely reciprocal.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's a business
Yeah.
transaction.
Yeah, it's
right?
transaction. Yeah.
Although I do think that it's not articulated enough. If one person is not being honest to the other person and the other person is being honest, I feel like it's a one-way street. then,
Absolutely, yeah.
right? Also, it's a bit ambiguous at this point, but I can get into that later. Second is that, just to start off again, because we had a
Yeah.
technical glitch.
Love it.
Because you said that there are professional goals which are outlined quite clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Even within the ambiguity, it's quite clear why the ambiguity is there,
Mm-hmm.
right? When it comes to a personal life, I think it's the lack of awareness or lack of the articulation of said goals that we think that there are no goals, or rather that's why the multitude thinks that there are no goals. But now here's my understanding that, okay, we have a life and we want to live it efficiently.
Correct.
Right? And to live an efficient life, we need to have everything within that life to be efficient, right? If you don't have a professional career of sorts, then you won't be able to, for the majority, they won't be able to sustain themselves, right? Because of rent and stuff like that. If they don't have a personal life, which is their family and friends, then obviously there's going to be a imbalance of
Imbalance.
sorts.
Yeah.
So I look at that personal domain, and of that, so if you now you have to understand that for the life to be efficient, the personal life has to be efficient. For the personal life to be efficient, a part of the social life has to be efficient. For the social life to be efficient, one part of that is friendship, and that friendship has to be efficient. And one of those, well, one of those rules, although I am using it loosely, is that hey, I have these things happening in my life. But as a friend, these are the things happening in my life that you know of, because I will be telling you that. And that's a precondition that as friends, we need to be having conversation. Otherwise, how the hell will
What's
you
the
know
point?
what's happening in my life? And because I'm going to be facing problems in my professional life, in my personal life, even outside the social thing, right? And I will need an outlet of sort because I need to have a conversation. And that's where my friend will come in, where I can tell him or her that these things are happening. What is your response to it? So that becomes the goal then. It's like,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That becomes a goal because I'll have a conversation. Now it doesn't bode well for me if you tell me things such as, oh, it's fine, oh, everything will happen the way it's supposed to happen. Like, these platitudes
Or
are
or
not.
even like overly optimistic. Yeah, it'll be all good.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah,
how
it's
do
probably
you know?
not. You're screwed. It's
and
like,
and also you're not doing your job or
Yeah.
your duty
Yeah.
to tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
And sort of you'll have to risk offending me to
Yeah.
a certain degree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what and so that's my understanding of the utility of friendship. What do you think about that?
I think just
With respect to, because you think that's a good way of looking at goals in the personal and the domain of friendship.
right. I think the goal of friendship, in my opinion, is to stay and also sort of reflect that on the other person, is to be as grounded as possible. Okay, I think it's a reflection of true reality. As a friend, I shouldn't be extremist about my opinions or my responses to you, rather be as grounded as possible, so that, and as you mentioned, I'm coming to a friend to speak about could be my problems or my life in general, and I expect them to mirror my reality in a way where I can reflect correctly. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
And I say this very often, as it's like a mirror, but not one that mimics you, but one that reflects you.
Right.
And
Or rather acknowledges the same
yeah,
as much as
correct,
it
correct.
can.
And it's just, it's always it's a very human thing to be able to align. And if I have a belief, if I uh, believe in something, and I were to speak to her and say, hey, do you believe in what I'm saying? And she'd be like, yes, I do. And for me, that is gratification. For me, that is that brings me to a point of self belief
Right.
as
Also
well,
solidification
of
the belief.
thoughts. Yes.
Right.
And that, I think, is really important in friendship, because
Right.
I can't be friends with someone who that's wrong way to put it. It's not like I can't be friends with someone who always disagrees with me, but I can't be friends with someone who doesn't accept my reality or doesn't reflect my reality, and is in another plane altogether.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, misaligned realities of sorts. I mean,
And I think
okay.
that's the goal of friendship, right?
Right.
How much can I stay grounded, and how much can I be aligned with you with respect to my thoughts and
Right.
life in general, I guess.
And why is this could be a little digressive, but why is grounding important?
Oh, it's because I think as humans we're supremely impulsive beings,
Okay.
and thoughts are always very spread out over different, sort of multitudes of different planes, but I think grounding and understanding your reality is it's what keeps you in check. It's what keeps you going, and it's what it's something that makes you understand what to do next. Because
Okay.
I could be thinking about things and feeling ecstatic about things that are never possible for me in my reality.
Right.
But being grounded helps me at least achieve a path towards getting there. Because
Right.
unless I don't know where I am, how do I know where I'm going?
Right.
So knowing where you are is really important, I think. And as a friend, at least, I would like to believe that my circle of friends is limited for that reason.
Right.
Is because I would love to be pally with, like, I share a beer with a stranger and be happy about
Right.
it in that moment. But and I could discuss plans of scaling Everest with that person in that moment,
Right.
right? And
Right.
it's happened, right?
And he
We've done
would
that.
he
Bro,
would
I wanna go to
indulge in your
Everest,
dream
cheers.
as well.
Sure,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that's nowhere close to my reality, and I don't know if I'll be able to ever scale Everest in a lifetime.
Right.
But if I go to a true friend and I say, "Hey, buddy, hey, Sharad, I want to scale Everest," and you're like, you can't do that. I'm
Right.
like, yeah, I know that,
Right.
but maybe we can go on a trek this weekend and see how you're gonna
Right.
scale towards probably scaling Everest in 10 years. And
Right.
that for me is friendship. Like, let's
Right.
stay grounded. Let's work towards that goal of fulfilling each other's
Right.
efficiencies of life,
Right.
as you pointed out,
Right.
right? And it goes back to understanding how do you make life, what is the efficiency of life,
Of
right?
course.
And I think when you share that vision with somebody or your belief, and I don't think there is one set formula for it. Everybody's life is different, everybody's goals are different, but friends help you understand where your efficiencies lie and how to achieve
Right.
them, how to be
Right.
most efficient in what you believe is efficiency in your life, right?
Right.
So
In a manner of speaking, I was just thinking about this.
Yeah.
It's important to you, and it's obviously, I mean, it's obvious to me. Obviously, it might not be obvious to you, but it's important to both of us that our reality be something that is achievable.
absolutely, yeah.
For us, it's about, okay, here's a thought. Now, I would love to achieve it, and if I'm not able to achieve it, I would much rather know that, not
Absolutely.
think that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
through partaking in efforts towards that. Maybe you want to scale Everest, and you start filing forms, doing the procedures, and then midway through it, and there's a certain health condition that you have, and you can't do it. But at least now you attempted till that point,
Yeah.
and now you can't do it.
Yeah.
You and I are. It's obvious to me that you and I are that, but there could be people, because what you said about just having a beer with a stranger and indulging in the fantasies of scaling Everest. Now, for you and me, just indulging in fantasies is not enough. But probably for that stranger and someone else,
Yeah, yeah,
just indulging in fantasies is a lot better than actually achieving it.
absolutely. I'm a big fan of doing that.
Right.
Because I believe, because that brings out a side of you that you want to be,
Right.
or you wish to be.
Oh, right.
Right. And or it might bring out a story that like they say, some bar stories last for a lifetime, because you meet friends. Bro, I met this person at the bar, and guess what happened, and guess what he spoke about. These are stories, and stories make life interesting. So I mean, I'm not saying let's not have those moments. Those are supremely important, but they're not friends. And
Right.
and I think
That's interesting, yeah.
going back to the definition of when you said define things and you align on that, I would like to define friendship as a pretty defined term, as opposed to me at a bar with someone discussing about scaling Everest together. That's an acquaintance, and I'd like to leave it at
Or
that.
it's a stranger you met at the bar.
Yeah, which is great, right?
One time. Yeah, that makes sense, because and I said what I said and that now that's it seems to me that I said that there are misaligned realities. I'm gonna correct that, but it's like just different realities.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then now this is a question. Although this question could be answered in yes or no, but I'll let you elaborate if you want. It seems to me that one cornerstone, and this has revealed itself to me. I have a friendship module, by the way, so there are separate some cornerstones that and every time I have a conversation with a person, and then after that conversation they become a friend for me. I add on to the module what I've learned from it. So now what I've learned from this particular conversation, because conversations, as we spoke earlier, allow for these solutions and insights, right? Is that one great indicator that a particular group can be friends together is that their realities are aligned that way.
Absolutely.
Like all of us in this room, if we are the sort of people, if one of the factors is that we want to make sure that we achieve what we fantasize about, then there's a good chance that we can be friends.
Absolutely.
And we see all of that. So then that becomes
like, I'd love to be friends with Elon Musk, but we're not on the same reality, and I'm not sure if we'll ever be able to get there. Right? He wants to head to Mars.
Right.
I don't know. I want to head home to Juhu, and that's that. Right. So at that point of time, so. But I love the guy. I love what he does. But I know for a fact that we can't be friends because our realities don't,
Well, you can't know that for a fact.
Not yet. Maybe sometime.
I mean, that possibility hasn't played out for you. Maybe tomorrow. Because, for example, if you and I had met, we met through Nikita, essentially, right? If you and I must have met at social somewhere.
Probably.
Past.
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
But the fact that we weren't able to interface with each other.
Or not have a drink and discuss Everest.
Right. I had made it very technical, interfacing,
Yeah.
So now it's only when you have that interface with Elon Musk. Probably he knows himself a lot better than you know him.
Absolutely.
Right. And you can probably do an interview of sorts where you have a conversation and it seems to you that there are a lot of realities that you sync with, and maybe you could be friends.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm talking very surface level.
Oh no, of course. And it's like you look at Elon Musk, I look at Socrates. He would have probably.
But he dead. You can be no friend with him.
That's unfortunate. A lot of people that I look up to.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going there. Okay, cool. I just want to ask you just one of the questions that we listed. It's along. Well, you actually touched on two. I'll let you choose. Do you want to go on the question of? Well, no, it's not a question. It's more of a statement. The importance of stories, or you want to elaborate more on what are goals?
I'm going to talk about stories because
Go for it.
I love using this analogy of the bar conversation that we just had.
Right.
And sort of from there, so stories are, generally in the world, there is fact and fiction, right?
Right.
A fact is, a proven fiction is fact.
Proven fiction is a fact.
Yes, because if I can say, hey, coffee is acidic, it's a fact. But sometime, somewhere in the past, somebody thought about the fact that there is something called acidity and then went ahead to prove it when it became a fact. Stories are fiction.
Okay.
More or less. Of course,
I'm not disagreeing.
Unless you're reliving a fact, which is something that happened,
like a history.
History is history, right? It's not story. For me, stories are things that might not necessarily have happened or will happen, but they're fantasies.
Right.
That can maybe become fact or stay fiction, right?
Right. Or rather, the way if I have to categorize it, story is a bigger set, and then there's a part. The history is a part of it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. The story is how you tell history, because history is a fact. Right. The world was happened. They happened, but the way they're told to us, the way they're relayed to us, is a story, right? When you look at Indian mythology, whether it's Ramayana or Mahabharata, and there might be some fact to prove that it actually happened. But it's a story, right? And it's a story we choose to believe or not believe, but it's still a story. Now, whether you choose to consider it fiction or fact, that is up to you, and that's your belief. But I think stories are very important. I professionally am in the business of selling stories and telling stories, and I do believe that it shapes a lot of the culture and society that we're in. There is an example that I personally love because I'm a sneakerhead. I love sneakers. There's a movie called Back to the Future.
Of course.
I'm hoping everyone's heard about it. If not, you're too young to be here.
I've seen it like way too many times.
Parth, I don't know if you're okay. Good. Back to the Future had a prototype of a Nike shoe called the Nike Air Mag, which is a self-lacing shoe, right? And it was fiction. It was something that was made up.
It was imagination rather.
Yeah, for that
Yeah.
movie. But today
Yeah.
it's a reality.
Right.
Right.
Of
And
course.
it's probably one of the most expensive sneakers available in the world.
Right.
But the reason why that exists is because somebody imagined it to happen, made it happen, and today it's a reality. So
Right.
it's a story. It's fiction, right? But it's something that manifested into
Itself into reality.
in
In a way,
reality,
it's not well. Let me just elaborate a part of it.
Yeah.
It's more like, well, the person who thought about that story didn't invent the shoe, right?
Oh no!
Not
yeah,
necessarily.
Absolutely.
Not
yeah.
necessarily.
In a way, they did actually.
In a way, they
Yeah,
did, of
yeah,
course,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they inspired probably someone.
Yeah.
So for them at that point, and I'm just trying to, well, be more descriptive of what this particular line, right? It's like, okay, there was someone who dreamt about something. They had to do that. They had to imagine a particular solution because there was a problem for them probably, and they're like, okay, this could be a solution. Now, whether that's feasible, technologically possible,
Didn't
they
matter.
wasn't their concern. Their concern was just dreaming probably.
Yeah.
And they thought about that, and then they made that thing, and that sort of became like a thing to aspire for someone in the industry of, let's say, sneakers. They're like, oh, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I'm in a position to make that
A reality.
happen,
Yeah.
and then
It happened. Yeah.
right. I don't know where to go with that, to be honest, because one of the things that I was slightly afraid of, afraid of is not the right word, that maybe we might agree on too many things. It's like,
Yeah.
how do I find a way to not disagree?
No,
for the
yeah,
sake of
but
disagree,
for conversation.
But
But
we can't just say yes.
No,
yes.
absolutely. Yeah. So no, but just another thing with stories, right? And I think that's
Well, the question was the importance of stories.
yes.
Right,
Now,
yeah.
and I'm coming to something that I am bothered about today.
Okay.
Is that I think the art of storytelling is it's not dying, but it's not what it used to be, and I'll explain why, right? Because literally like 3 decades ago, the only source of inspiration for stories used to be books and your mind, right? You would, in isolation or otherwise, think about things, come up with stupid problems in your head that probably don't exist, but then become this amazing, beautiful story, right?
Yeah.
Today, unfortunately, there is so much information available
Right.
that it's really hard for people to dream or like to come up with original things. And while it's a double-edged sword, it's good because you don't waste time being stupid about something or like fantasizing about something, but it's bad because if you're not stupid and not fantasizing, you're not coming up with stories.
Right.
And I feel like originality has paused. Right. Everything today is an inspiration of everything else that has happened or is happening. Right.
Or rather, it's become way too direct an inspiration because everything is inspired.
Exactly.
In a way, like it's like all of our thoughts have been already thought of and will be thought of.
Exactly.
Eventually,
Yeah.
even if no one has any correlation to us, right? The fact that, for example, Socrates thought that he knows nothing is not a very original thought. Probably a lot of people have thought about that independently. So no one has a claim on originality per se. But do you think, with respect to that, do you think that today, was let's say 3.5, 4 decades back?
Yeah.
I'm thinking you're thinking 2010 though.
Oh no. I'm like
you're thinking that 3 decades before this.
Yeah.
Are you thinking 80s?
70s, 80s,
70s,
60s,
so that's
maybe.
50 decades.
Yeah, maybe
5
like 5 decades.
So you're thinking of 2010.
I'm old.
No, because because when we think 10 years back, we think back to 90s.
90s, that's true.
And it's been 30 years for that.
Not you, Parth.
No, but I say that because do you think that 50 years back, because there was a limitation or a constraint on the source of
inspiration,
history, literature, inspiration,
yeah.
that actually led people to actually focus on those things. And
Absolutely,
today, there's a bit of there's the entire people don't really have great sources. Now
I think they have too many sources to point out what is great.
Of course, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. And do you think that, well, just stating the problem is not enough? How do we solve that if we have? Because both of us have a problem-solving attitude.
I wish to believe so. I think there is a very straightforward solution to this is don't limit but curate what you consume.
How does one even come to that understanding that that is something that should be done?
By understanding what is it that you want to become or what is it that you wish to be exposed to, right? It's very important to know what stories you want to hear, what stories do you want to be inspired from. You know, I could be just reading and watching true crime documentaries all my life, and suddenly I've been inspired to be a murderer. I don't know, like, you know, I mean, it's very extremist. It's very extremist, but
you have to exaggerate to
to understand that thought, right? So the idea is to be able to consume what you want to be, because I believe you are a true reflection of what you consume.
Sort of. In partly that's for true.
Yeah, like because there is self, but then there is
influences
that define you or that shape you or mold you, whatever you want to call it. You need to choose, because today there is so much out there.
Right.
You know, like our parents, if they were in a similar reality like we spoke about, probably consume the same thing. Right?
Oh, for
they
sure.
read the same newspapers, watched the same TV, heard the same radio, read the same books.
They would just resemble the masses. How would they?
Absolutely, right? And then there was this collective consciousness that was developed. Today that doesn't exist. It exists in silos. It exists in niches, right? So there is a collective consciousness around sneakers, because we spoke about it. I'm just using that example. There is a collective consciousness about coffee, because, you know, you and I share a love for coffee. But there is no collective consciousness about stories or about you know, larger things that should matter.
Right.
I'm not saying having silos of these communities or consciousness is not good. It's great.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. It's great. You know, we need to sort of take a step back, breathe, pause, and understand that if we need to define a generation, if we need to define the future of our generation, we need to collectively align on a few things.
Right.
And that is not happening. And I think the solution to that should be to, like I said, not limit. I'm staunch believer of never limit information, but curate it. You know, have some level of curation of what you consume.
I understand that, because and I'm just gonna come back to a part of it, because like I believe what you said, right? I forgot the name of the author who said this particular line, but she said that we don't see the world as it is, but we see it the way we are. So you and I sort of like, because the way we said, now you said that we have to define ourselves as a generation. Now it's going to happen in two parts. One is, and the smaller part will be the intentional part. You know, intentionally as a collective, just the generation if you look at the entire generation as a silo, it's a big silo, but if you look at that way, there's a particular message that is going around. Like a couple of messages going around, which are partly marketed, partly unconscious, partly subconscious, partly whatever are the nuances of the individual, of the collective. So that's happening by itself. That's the natural flow of it. And then there's an intentional flow of it, right? Which the way you and I look at it is that, okay, you need to curate it. I don't disagree with that part, right? My problem is, or rather my conundrum is, how does one know that they should be doing it in the first place? Because, for example, let's go back 6 years in my life. A normal day would be going on YouTube, watching just a bunch of videos, whichever they lead to, watching Office, watching any show, watching any video. Obviously, they were still in a particular domain of my personality today, but they were a lot more spread out. And my day itself would be a lot more spread out. Now, you know, in part of the curation part of it, if I'm on YouTube, I'll definitely not watch bloopers as many times as I was watching 6 years back, I'll be more inclined to watching more podcasts or long form videos about a particular discussion. Or even the fact that I might not even watch YouTube that much, to be honest. And 6 years back or 7 years back, I would read a lot more fiction, to be honest. Now, almost no fiction. Maybe there's only one book I'm reading. But I had to do that. And that happened to me. Now, I don't know how that happened to me, to be honest. Like, at what point that shift happened.
I don't think it's a switch. It's more of I mean, you'd know better, but personally, it's also been a journey. You start to understand what you don't want to do, to understand what you really like.
Probably. That's a better way of going.
Yeah, I would call it like selective disagreement with yourself, where you start disagreeing with, hey, this blooper shit is just getting out, it's getting whack, I should stop watching so many things, or I should like stop binge watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine, for example. Right?
No, I understand.
I still did it over the weekend, but I'm just saying, it's like you kind of realize that this is not worth my time anymore.
Right.
Probably was a few years back, and it's brought me to this point where I can say, okay, enough.
Right.
This is where I maybe draw a line and sort of wait it out of my life. But yeah, it's a journey. I mean, you don't switch and be like, this is what I want to be, or this is who I am. I think it's a process that will take a lifetime.
Right.
Yeah, it's.
And I mean, I agree with you. And also, but while it's been it could be a steady transition, or it could be an inconsistently steady transition towards the end of it. It makes sense in hindsight, right? Obviously, in the process of it doesn't. Yeah. Today, I can articulate why I do certain things, why I do some things and why I don't do some things. And before I say that, one of the reasons I'm doing the podcast is because I feel like there's a canonical nature of knowledge. Our discussion, maybe it might be useful to us only till the point where we have that discussion, and then we go about doing we have our own individual lives. But probably someone who's watching the video could get some insight, and that could help them. That's one eventuality that could happen, right?
I hope you're watching and being inspired.
So I can just articulate that how I see, what I use to decide what I do and what I don't do, right? It's that I look at a future ideal self of who I want to be, who I'm not probably, like a precondition I'm setting.
Absolutely.
I'm pretending to be that.
Absolutely.
I'm pretending to wake up at 5. Yeah. Because the first time you wake up, like probably for example, Parth, I know, gets up at 10 or 9. Okay. For him to be a person who gets up at 5, he can't do that the next day.
Of course.
He'll have to first pretend to do that.
Yeah.
And there is a certain, now, do you agree with the sentence that maybe pretension is a precondition to change?
100%. Okay. And I know we're agreeing on a lot of things now. But I'm going to go to that question that you asked me before the stories bit, which is what are goals, right? Yeah. And it's what you said in that sense of, this is how I look at it. I look at myself as an 80-year-old. Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Okay. Right. Let's imagine I'm 80. Like, okay, I'm old and sexy. And I'm kidding. I'm 80, and I look back at my life. I'm 18. I'm looking back at Devarsh's life in the past. What are the things that I did or didn't do that causes me regret, and how do I minimize that? Right. So for me, goals are and should be set, at least for me personally in my life, is to minimize regret. Right. Because there is one set of goals which will get me from A to B.
Right.
But maybe I'll regret doing that. For now, for me today, it probably is important that I lose 10 kilos. Fair enough. But I might not eat as to my heart's content for a year to do that. Right. And I will regret that. And when I'm old, and sexy, I'm going to look back and be like, damn it, it shouldn't have mattered. I should have enjoyed that moment.
And probably also you might recalibrate at the end of the year. It's like, okay, I tried losing 10 kilos and probably you didn't. Even though you were miserable, you didn't.
I didn't.
No, as an example, because in my previous episode, Sid asked me this question that, what are your fitness goals? I told him that I had a fitness goal where I wanted to put on 10 kilos. Quite the reverse of your position, right? Yeah. And in doing so, I was miserable. I didn't put on 10 kilos. I put on like 3.
Yeah.
But the effort that was required
Yeah.
to put on that, I realized that was not worth it because I
Correct.
didn't want to do that. But I had
Exactly.
to. So while I did sort of regretted
Yeah.
doing that mistake, I'm glad I did that. So now I
Now
know
you know
that
what
I
not
don't
to
want
do.
to do it
Correct,
for sure.
correct. But now imagine, and going back to what you said, everything makes sense in hindsight.
Right. Of
Okay?
course.
And I live by that because if I, like I said, you go back, I mean, you go ahead to think that you're 80, now look back in hindsight.
Oh, for sure.
And let's see what makes sense, even though you're projecting your reality of today, and that probably is not who I'm going to be when I'm 80. But it is important to think like that, because if you believe in the fact that things make sense in hindsight, then start thinking like that.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Like
So
from hindsight of the 80
of the future. Yeah. So you know.
No, I completely believe that because I look at that this is not a question in our thing,
Yeah.
but I do believe that it's important to carve out a future self. Like you have to do it today.
Yeah.
You know, you can't carve out I mean, there are some people who would say that, oh, you take it as goes.
Yeah.
But then I feel like that's not a great strategy. You know,
But you know what? It works for some people. It works for some people, and I respect that, because it doesn't work for me. So when I look at something that I don't think I can do, or I am preconditioned or can condition myself to do, I very naturally end up respecting that person or that person's opinion or their way of life. Right? Like, for
Completely
example, I
understand
know people who've lost 10 kilos in 3 months because they just wanted to do it. Right? They wanted to do it and they did it. Right? Whether they sacrificed their love of food, whether they woke up at 4 a.m. and slept 3 hours every day, they didn't care. Right? But a person like me would, as an 80-year-old sexy self, I would look back and be like, why did I do that? You know, like,
no, but that actually you're not refuting my point, because you know, they are not saying that it works for them,
right?
Because they are also not taking it as it comes. They also planned it essentially
in the short term. Yeah.
They still planned it. My contention is with people who say that it works for me, because how do you know it works for you? And isn't that where our role as a friend comes in? Because let's say while we let people be, let's let them be, because that's that's definitely a good thing to do. You can't tyrannically constrain someone against their will. That I generally believe that, right? Let people be. But as a friend, isn't it then probably our duty to point out where we think it doesn't work for them? You know what I'm saying? Maybe someone says, maybe you might tell me right now as a friend, that you want to lose 30 kilos in the next 4 months. And I'll be like, no, bro, it doesn't work for you. And you could be hell bent on it. But then it's my duty to tell you, illustrate as precisely as I can, here's why it won't work for you. You know, I could lay out the numbers and you could be like, then it obviously comes on you whether you want to agree with me or, you know.
But I'm going to actually not oppose, but like go back to something that I said and change it a little bit, which is your definition of being a friend. You know, and I spoke about being grounded and, you know, spoke about reality. But sometimes, and I think it's very important, is you let the other person figure out themselves as well. And that might involve you letting them make a mistake. Okay? Not something that might harm them in a way, but something that they might learn from. Right? It could be something as stupid as you know, you've had a dinner and you've had a dessert, and then, you know, someone's like, I want to go for a second dessert, and you're like, you do not need that second dessert, right? Because I'm going back to the goal that, hey, you had to lose 10 kilos. They're like, no man, I don't really feel like having a second dessert. Like, okay, go for it. You know what? Just have your second dessert.
I understand that.
You have to do that because as a friend, you need to have that relationship with someone where you also allow the other person to indulge. Because you know, if you end up doing it to yourself all the time, you end up being a narcissistic person. You don't want to be that person all the time. So I need somebody in my life, or everybody needs somebody in their life that allows them to be stupid sometimes, that allows them to make a mistake, that is fun in a way also, and that also teaches you a thing or two maybe in the future, and you probably not have a third dessert.
No, I understand that. I'm just going to see, there are times where I understand that, okay, let's say we are having that dinner and you are having that second dessert. Okay.
That's me.
Right. And even I could have it with that, right? And you are having it. And in one situation, I tell you, hey man, you want to lose weight, right? And you're like, oh, thank you for telling me that. And you stop. That's one situation. Second situation is that, no, I really want to have it, and you have it. Third situation is that I tell you that, hey, you want to lose weight, and you're like, can you just let me be, right? Now, in the third situation, in a week from that event, when you're having a conversation, and then the friend goes, man, I'm not losing weight at all. Then what do you do?
I told you so.
Then now, how do you avoid saying that?
You don't avoid it. You're a friend. You're
How
supposed
do you
to
say
tell
that?
them. You're
So
going
I
to
told
have
you
to.
so, maybe.
No,
do you
but that's
make-
being diplomatic.
Right.
I don't think I need to be diplomatic with friends because I'm going to tell them,
Right.
you know, you're a piece of shit because I told you so.
Right.
You didn't listen to me. Now you're complaining.
Right. No, I understand.
know, like-
see, that would have been my response usually.
Yeah.
Although not, I wouldn't say I told you so.
Yeah.
I would just be like, but, you know, you sort of
You did
asked
you.
for, you did you. It's I mean, it clearly didn't work for you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
So again, it's one of those things where we just agree.
Yeah, which is fine. I think.
No, I have no problem with agreeing.
Yeah.
You know, but I would definitely look forward to playing the devil's advocate, and we've done that to a certain degree. Let me just ask you one question, then we'll head towards the outro of sorts. I'll ask you this one question because, and you know which question this
Yeah,
is.
of course I do. Yeah.
It's only because I can't ask anyone else this question
Sure.
in this room,
Yeah.
and you can be brief about it.
No,
right?
it's fine. Yeah.
What is the role and definition of marriage?
Right. Why is everyone laughing? Okay, yeah, no. So I've been married for about a year and a half now. Right, and actually, it's a friend of mine asked me this question, right? And he doesn't believe in marriage, and he said, "Bro, what? How has it been? What is it? You know, like he was curious." And I said one thing which, for him, was a bit of an eye opener, right? I said, "Do you have conversations with yourself?" You know, he said, "Of course, yeah. Who doesn't?" No, I said, "Okay." And when you have conversations with yourself, do you always get answers? Do you always get, you know? He's like, "Not always. You know, sometimes you're just thinking about things and you lose that thought and it goes away." And then I said, "Now imagine having a conversation with yourself, but with somebody else, right?" Now, when I say that, what I mean is you talk to yourself. You ask yourself sometimes, "Is this right or wrong?" These are some of the basic things that you'd ask, right? Should I do this? You know, where do I go from here? Or, you know, XYZ said this to me. How do I feel about it? These are things you think about. But
You reflect on.
You reflect on. Imagine you reflecting on those things that are inherently very personal to you, that, you know, you don't always have an answer to, but you always have that question or those
And you
questions.
have to go through that.
You go through that process. Imagine going through the process with someone else, right? From just from a relationship perspective, right? That's how I look at marriage.
Right.
That's how it's been for me so far, fortunately, and it's been great because I look at Nikita as a person who I can reflect not only the deepest, darkest sides of me, but also the most frivolous.
Even surface level
Things,
casual.
right, that I can reflect on. You know, it could be something as deep as you know, who am I as a person, very generic, to you know, should I stop having 6 cups of coffee a day?
Right.
You know, so because these are questions I used to ask myself sometimes. And I can't go up to someone and say, "Hey, should I stop having 6 cups of coffee?" And they're going to say, "Fuck yeah, stop having 6 cups of coffee a day. It's not good for you."
Right.
But
Not me.
Yeah, of course, yeah, you wouldn't say that. But
yeah.
because we started agreeing on a lot of things. But you know, it's it's like having a friend, but not one who will be the one who said, "I told you so." You know, of course, she does that a lot, and I do that a lot, and that happens, of course, because we're friends.
Right.
But it's not that kind of friendship. It's more of a very, you know, reflective. I can be very sad with her.
Right.
I can be very happy with her. I can be
You can be you.
me, but be the extremes of me, right?
Right.
I can be me with a lot of people, right? And when I'm in a social setting with Nikita and my friends, I'm myself, whether you know, she's in the room or not, because it's because I know I'm comfortable, I'm safe, I'm mentally very relaxed, I'm very at ease. But with her, I can even be extreme, and
Which is a more of you in a way, right? If you are a
It's-
spectrum,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
extreme.
Correct.
Then that's a bigger you.
If
than,
this is me always, this is me sometimes, but this me sometimes is a very big definition of
bigger
me.
of you, yeah.
Yeah, and I can't always be that with other people.
Right.
I can't always be extremely dark or extremely unhappy or extremely sad or
Right.
extremely optimistic or extremely
Anything for that
happy
matter.
for that matter, right? Because people are going to think I'm crazy.
Right.
But I allow myself to be that with her,
Right.
and she does the same, and I think that brings you to a point where you learn to accept a person as they are with their flaws, right? So A is me defining my flaws, because look, if I'm a nice person, anyone and everyone can like me.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's obvious.
Yeah.
You don't generally not like a nice person. Like,
Yeah.
There's a nice person. Hey, this person's nice. There's nothing to
Yeah.
not like about them.
Yeah.
But that's not how people are. Everyone should be nice at the surface level. Most people are, but inside of them, we're all complicated people,
Yeah.
right? We're all complicated people. We come with a set of preconceived notions. We come with kind of preconditioned beliefs, and you need somebody in your life, and this is what at least I believe, and this is not the most popular opinion, but you need somebody in your life that you can share these with, or even
Or the way you said it, like mirror your reality of sorts.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's one. And the other definition of marriage that I could, and that I think is true, at least for myself, is you need, I believe in this concept. I'm not going to elaborate on the concept, but it's called yin and yang,
Of course.
right? It's a Chinese concept. In fact, I used to wear a yin and yang thing when I was 19. But I believe like balance is very important.
Right.
And while I like to believe I'm a balanced person, but you need another person to really balance everything in your life from
Or would you say a compliment would be a better word? Like because you have complementary.
Actually no. Nikita and I don't complement each other with a lot of things, and I think that works in our favor, right? There's a lot of things that we disagree on, like all the time, all the time, but that always makes me think,
Right.
And it always makes her also think. So it's like a,
But isn't thinking the part which is complementary then?
it's inherent with disagreement, right? So I could be disagreeing with anyone in this room, but I would stick to my opinion.
Right.
Usually.
Okay.
Usually. That's how it works. Because even with a friend, you disagree, okay, fine, okay, whatever. But, we had that discussion about where you said, screw you, I want to do this, don't bother me.
Right.
Right. I can't do that with my wife. I can, but it's not a nice thing to do.
Right.
Right. And I think I don't mind that. It's okay. It's I'd like to be able to know myself better through her, and I think I'm doing that as time comes along. So I can be truly reflective of my being. Right. And I think marriage is that. It's also a lot of disagreement, but disagreement that you use as a way to better your life.
Each other's as well.
Each other's lives, of course. Yeah.
So it's obviously it's stretching slightly, but it's like a along the lines of a more perfect friendship of sorts. Along the lines, I'm not saying it is. I'm not saying that's the end goal, but it could be.
Yeah.
Right. You would, or rather, you would if there's marriage, you would want your friends, most of your friendships to be towards that. Not that, obviously, but
hell no.
Right.
No, I'm kidding. But yeah, sure. I mean, in a way, it is the ideal friend.
Right.
Like your partner, is your ideal friend. But that's not always the case.
Right.
It's a process. There are things about myself that I learn every day via her and vice versa, and then we understand ourselves as a couple. Also, that's like for me, I look at it as three entities. There's her, there's me, and then there's us.
Yeah.
And us is not always 50-50 of me
Right.
and her. It's a lot of different things, because you don't marry a person, you marry you marry their thoughts, you marry their thinking, you
Ideas.
marry their ideas, you marry their energy, and it's very important that you find middle ground
Yeah.
somewhere. And it keeps it's a wave. It goes, it's
I mean, in
ebbs and flows, and
Right.
you find rhythm. That's what I like to say.
I mean, more than finding middle ground, it's the attempt towards finding that middle
Yes,
ground.
yes.
Right.
So it's like a very an analogy would be the sea. When you're at the beach, the waves ebb and flow.
Right.
It's never
Just
stable.
static.
Yeah, because that's not
that's
how
not a sea.
nature is, right?
Yeah.
And it works with the moon's gravity,
Right.
making a rhythm. And
Yeah.
now you accustomed to that rhythm. You
Right.
love it. People understand. They love the waves. They love the way the sea is. But that's how a marriage is. It's a rhythm. It ebbs and flows, but you find this beautiful dance of sorts, right? That you grow to love, and that
Right.
you grow to understand that this is who we are.
Right.
And yeah,
And so quite a natural form of just being human, because
oh yeah,
humans are a part of nature, so that just flows.
Yeah.
So anything you would do against that just would not work for you.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Can't stop the waves. That's
Well, you can try, but it's going to be so detrimental.
Yeah.
If you had to ask one question to me,
Mm-hmm.
it might not be related to this, but if you have,
Mm-hmm.
then
What fuels your or rather, what is the reason that you want to dive so deep into questions that transcend ground level, or that why you pursuing the quest for answering or looking for answers for questions that don't have definitive answers?
okay, fair enough.
What fuels that? Why is it that something
Right.
that you want to do?
Okay. So this is weirdly enough, I can connect it to this particular conversation because about 2.5 months back, or maybe 2 months back, I was sitting in front of the mirror, literally in front of the mirror. I don't often do this. It's one of the very few times that I did exactly this. I looked in the mirror and I was looking at my face, and I was trying to see the person that there is.
Mm-hmm.
Not the person that I see,
Mm-hmm.
but the person that there is. And this might, to a uninitiated bystander, seem morbid.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just gonna mention that at the outset, but it's not. I was thinking, okay, why are you doing this?
Hmm.
This is at the beginning of trying to even formulate what the method would be. I was like, why are you doing this? What's the point? What's the virtue of doing this?
Mm.
And what's the meaning of this, probably, or what is, those standard questions. And I was like, no, these questions are way too big for you at this point, or rather, there is a question that is there which you're not asking. I'm not in the ballpark of answering, but you're not asking. So I was like, okay, so I tried to find, in a reverse subsequent manner, the first question, the most important. Everything else is window dressing of sorts. So I was like, okay. So I tried doing a dichotomy of control in my life. I tried to observe the dichotomy of control. It's like, okay, what is in my control and what's not? What is constant and what's not? So then I was like, okay, when we are born, that's not in our hand, literally, right? It's also a constant. That's one of the only constants in our lives, sort of, right? It's like the day you were born, you couldn't change it, and it's sort of set. That's why you are here right now. Okay, and then the day you die, it's set in the future, sort of constant. Now this is the morbid part. It's not really out of your hand, right? At some point in your life, probably the teenage years, or maybe earlier, maybe later, you become acutely aware that you can stop it, right? It's not that difficult to see that. It's in your control to stop life, but we don't decide to do that. Obviously, majority of us don't. That's why we are 7.3 or 7.4 billion people right now. So then my question was, and this is my attempt at asking the first question, which is important to me. So I was like, okay, what is that? So then how do we live? Because we decide to live. So for me, it's a spectrum on, do you want to live as efficiently as you can? Or do you do the least that is required so that you don't die. And we lie between these two spectrums, it seems to me. And we need to know the game that we are in so that we take choices so that we do one of the two. Now, I like to believe that I'm of the opinion that I want to live as efficiently as I can. Okay, I don't want to do the least so I don't die. I want to do the most I can in the most efficient way that's possible within whatever is my control and in my influence to do it. So to answer your question, then it became clear to me that the more I read, right, the more I have conversations. These are two things, right, or other conversations. The most important thing for me is to accumulate knowledge so that I can do something about it. You know, you can't live efficiently if you don't know how to live efficiently.
Right.
That's the first question. To live efficiently, to have a life, then you need to have a good professional life and a personal life. But you need to live efficiently. That's the question. And those questions lead to subsequent questions, right? And two ways of doing that. One is the empiricist manner, which is that you use your sense perception to understand the world, which is, you know, okay, the coffee is hot, so I shouldn't drink it right now, it'll burn my throat. And there is the rationalist, where you reason that, you know, maybe I should not have 6 cups of coffee because I can do it for a day or two, but probably not for the rest of my life. And so you need to know these two things. These are the way you do epistemology, the thinking of thinking. And thinking is important. I do believe that thinking is important. So for me, the best way to think is, one is what happens here. And the second is the influences. Now, the way it happens here is not really, the structure of how I think is not in my control, right? Because the way I was born, my proclivities towards life and stuff like that, that's not my control, sort of, right? I was born with some of that. But the influences I can sort of influence, right? It's like, okay, I can have conversations. That's why I'm doing this. Now, there are two kind of people that you can have conversations with. People who are alive and people who are dead. So this takes care of the alive part. Reading books takes care of the dead people, right? And Socrates said this, like, employ your time in reading the writings of the people, I'm paraphrasing, who've labored hard for things that can come easily to you. And I do believe that. You know, it's like, he lived like he did his 70 sexy self, right? He had his insights. And they're there for me to look at and learn from and adapt and possibly integrate into my life. So why not? And the moment I decided to do that, it seems to me that I've gone down, and I use this rather positively, I've gone down on a rabbit hole. And now there's no reason to stop.
Now you're Alice in Wonderland.
Sort of. It's like, you know, I don't want to plug in Geo's Wonderland, but, you know, I don't see a reason. Like, even for example, I was contemplating doing this with you, not because I don't want to do this with you. I'm like, okay, what can go wrong? You know, we could agree to everything, and then that's not really useful. Or maybe we don't know what to talk about. Maybe I blank out. All these things will happen. But then of everything that I've thought of and everything that has influenced me, I rather have a conversation where we don't have a conversation. You know, let this be a failure. So then later on, I can discuss it with my team or with myself too, because it's again a conversation, and make sure the next conversation that I have doesn't go down that road. So it's a better mode of being than not doing it. So that's what fuels me. That if I'm going to live, I'm going to try to live it as efficiently, and to live as efficiently, I have to do these things. It's actually my duty now. Having thought about this I've kept at the pinnacle of my value hierarchy, that this is what I have to follow. And obviously that leads to a set of presuppositions and set of axioms that you have to follow and adhere to. And that's where I am at. I hope that answers
it did.
the question.
So you self-assigned a duty, which I hope, and I'm quite confident, will become your duty to society.
That's one way. And also, I keep telling Chirag this, one of the checkpoints of life. It's like, you know, we've spoken about these things. Let's follow up when you're 45. But with respect to you, I'll tell you, when we are 70 and sexy, we'll have a follow-up conversation about this, because that's in hindsight. And I say 70 because I don't think I'll live more than 70. You will be 80, but 70 seems like a good number to stop living efficiently. But that's that. Okay, just last one thing. Do you have a quote?
Yes.
Okay.
There is a movie Chirag, I don't know if you were born when this movie, sorry, Parth, I don't know if you were born when this movie released. It's called The Matrix. You've seen it. Fantastic. The Matrix has a character called the Mouse. And he says this thing, to deny our own impulses is to deny the very thing that makes us human. And I love that.
Oh, yeah.
Because humans are inherently impulsive beings, and I've said this time and again. We're very instinctual and impulsive, no matter how much rational thought, no matter how much structure, process, whatever we bring into things. A lot of what happens or has happened or will happen will depend on impulse
Right.
of the human being.
Right.
Because humans are we're just supremely curious, supremely selfish, and humans are selfish, which is why we're the we're the one animal that rules the kingdom or whatever. And because we're selfish, because we're curious, we're impulsive, because there are instincts in you that tell you things that might not make sense.
Right.
Or you or society or rules should tell you not to do. But if you don't do those things,
Right.
you're not human.
Right.
You're a robot. You're programmed to do things. And
Right.
I just feel like people should listen more to their impulses.
Right.
People should be a little more instinctual than they are.
Right.
And people should trust their inner voice a little more than they believe is possible. So
I mean, to add to that, I feel like it's more about, although I don't disagree with you, it's impulses are inherently within you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it seems to me that then a person becomes what they do with those impulses rather. And from an outside perspective, like as Jung pointed out, he said that we are not what we say we'll do.
Mm-hmm.
We are what we do.
Mm-hmm.
So the way your reaction to those impulses actually make you who you are.
Absolutely.
So,
but I think it's very important to acknowledge your impulses,
for sure.
right?
Right.
So like
that, I mean, sort of sums up what I'm doing.
Yeah.
My answer,
Yeah.
that I could have easily quoted that as an answer to your question to me.
Yeah.
Although it would have not been as elaborated.
Yeah. You had, let's say you had an impulse to do this thing.
Yeah.
But you're making it happen.
Yeah.
And that is your reality. And that is amazing, because you heard your impulse and then you rationalized it. You know, stop killing your impulses.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people do that.
Yeah. I think that was a great way of ending it. Thank you for... I didn't do this in the first episode because I'm so bad at humaning, is what I call it. It's like in the first episode, it just ended. So I get a chance now to do it well. So thank you for doing this.
And hopefully we reflect on this when we're 70, 80 and sexy.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
All right, so that was episode 2 with Devarsh Thaker. Now, one thing I'd like to point out very briefly is that my approach towards these conversations is not title based as much as we start off from a place of uncertainty and we let that lead us to the title of the video. And what was particularly interesting to me is that although I really can't call him a stranger, we did speak at length about friendship. And I think it goes in the direction of illustrating how the equation of friendship is not just about the length, but also the depth of the conversation. But having said that, I'd like to know what you guys think. What is friendship to you? Do you have certain principles that you adhere to, or do you just take it as it comes? Do you have best friends or do you have close friends? Or is that a distinction that seems rather redundant to you? Let me know, and if you have any other questions, I'd like to hear them as well. Are there questions that I missed? Was there a question that could have been framed better? How would you have treated certain responses? Let me know in the comments below and we'll figure something out. Thank you so much for your time. And as always,